On this 2015 through 2025 F150 with the 5.0L Coyote P0101 is an airflow plausibility code. In plain terms, the PCM may be seeing measured airflow that does not match the airflow it expects. The truck may have a check engine light, rough idle, hesitation, poor throttle response, or it may run normally while the code is stored. Broadly, this can involve a possible intake restriction, an intake air leak, a MAF sensor or circuit concern, electrical noise on the sensor circuit, or, less often, a control side issue. For P0101, the fault sets when actual airflow is less or greater than modeled airflow by greater than a calibrated value for 4 seconds. Before staying on the P0101 MAF path, look at the whole scan result. If an intake air temperature-related code group is present with it, handle that shared air temperature path first. That path is looking at the IAT sensor circuitry, the sensor, and possible PCM involvement. If that group is not present, do not force the IAT path. Continue into the P0101 MAF diagnosis. When the IAT path applies, start with the ignition off. Disconnect the PCM connector, and on the 5.0L32V TiVCT disconnect the map sensor connector. For the open circuit check, measure between C1140 pin 3 and C1381 E pin 72, and between C1140 pin 4 and C1381 E pin 89. Only measure the circuits that apply to the vehicle in front of you. The resistance should be less than 5 ohms. If it is not, repair the open circuit, clear the PCM DTCs, and repeat the self-test. If that passes, check for a short to ground at C1140 pin 3. The resistance should be greater than 10,000 ohms. If it is not, repair the short circuit, clear the PCM DTCs, and repeat the self-test. Then turn the ignition on and check C1140 pin 3 for a short to voltage. If any voltage is present where it should not be, repair the short circuit, clear the PCM DTCs, and repeat the self-test. Before putting meter leads on any check where both lead targets are not clearly identified, stop and verify the connector targets. Do not guess at lead placement. If those IAT circuit checks pass, connect the PCM connector and the map sensor connector, turn the ignition on, and monitor the applicable IAT temperature PIDs. All PIDs may not be available on every vehicle. Wiggle, shake, and bend small sections of the harness from the sensor toward the PCM, then lightly tap near the sensor housing and wiggle the connector to simulate road shock. If the IAT PID changes, repair as necessary. Reset keep alive memory and repeat the self-test. If it does not change, move to the IAT circuit voltage cycling check. With the ignition off, disconnect the map sensor connector, turn the ignition on, monitor the IAT 1V PID, record the IAT PID value, then use a 5 amp fuse jumper wire at the C1140 pin 3 checkpoint as specified for the vehicle. The expected change is from greater than 3.0 volts to less than 0.20 volt when the jumper is connected. If it makes that change on this 5.0L application, install a new map sensor, reset keep alive memory, and repeat the self-test. If it does not, continue to the PCM operation check. There is also an IAT correlation branch when that air temperature path calls for it. Check the temperature values with the engine at ambient temperature, and cold soak the engine for a minimum of 8 hours while not in direct sunlight if needed. With the ignition off, connect the mapped sensor connector and IAT sensor connector. Then turn the ignition on and compare the applicable air, coolant, charge air, and IAT temperature PIDs. All PIDs may not be available on every vehicle. The temperature readings should be within 17 degrees C, 30 degrees F of each other. If they are, move to the PCM operation check. If they are not, install the IAT MAF/IAT or mapped sensor in question, reset keep alive memory, and repeat the self-test. For the PCM operation check, disconnect all PCM connectors, inspect for pushed-out pins and corrosion, Then reconnect the connectors and make sure they seat correctly. Verify whether the concern is still present. If it is still present after those connector checks, the path calls for installing a new powertrain control module. If the concern is gone, the system is operating correctly at that time, and the issue may have been caused by a loose or corroded connector. Once that shared air temperature issue is handled, come back to the P0101 MAF path instead of mixing the two diagnostics together. Now focus on P0101. Start with the basic system checks, then follow a structured diagnostic approach. If P0101 is present, stay on the MAF sensor diagnostic path. Do not turn this into a parts call. The first part of this path is to prove whether the air system, the sensor feed, the signal circuit, or the harness is causing the airflow mismatch. With the ignition off, inspect the intake air system before getting deep into circuit testing. Diagnose the suspect MAF sensor indicated by the code. Check the air cleaner, housing, and intake tubes for restriction. Look for loose or broken outlet tube clamps, cracks, holes, and gasket problems around the MAF/IAT sensor and air cleaner assembly. Make sure the MAF/IAT connector is fully seated. Also check the throttle body bore for sludge, and check the crankcase ventilation system for leaks or restrictions. If you find a concern here, repair it as necessary, clear the PCM DTCs, and repeat the self-test. If the intake side checks out, move into the electrical checks. Next, check the voltage to the MAF/IAT sensor. The voltage needs to be greater than 5V. If it is not, repair the open circuit, clear the PCM DTCs, and repeat the self-test. If the voltage is good, turn the ignition off, disconnect the PCM connector, and check the MAF harness for an open. The resistance needs to be less than 5 ohms. If it is higher than that, repair the open circuit, clear the PCM DTCs, and repeat the self-test. Then check the MAF signal circuit for a short. The resistance needs to be greater than 10,000 ohms. If it is not, repair the short circuit, clear the PCM DTCs, and repeat the self-test. After that, turn the ignition on and check for short to voltage. If any voltage is present where it should not be, repair the short circuit, clear the PCM DTCs, and repeat the self-test. As with the earlier electrical checks, make sure the connector and meter lead targets are positively identified before measuring. If the hard circuit checks pass, reconnect the PCM connector and the MAF/IAT sensor connector. Start the engine. Bring the engine up to 500 RPM for 5 seconds, return it to idle, then repeat that 500 RPM for 5 seconds, check one more time and bring it back to idle. While watching the MAF PID, lightly tap near the MAF sensor housing and wiggle the harness connector to simulate road shock. Not every PID is available on every vehicle, so use the applicable MAF data you can monitor. If the MAF PID changes during this check, clean the MAF/IAT sensor using CRC Mass Airflow Sensor Cleaner 05110 or equivalent. Reset Keep Alive memory and repeat the self-test. If the PID does not change, continue with the harness intermittent check. Now keep watching the MAF PID and work the harness in small sections from the sensor back toward the PCM. Wiggle, shake, and bend the harness while looking for the PID to react. If the MAF PID changes, repair the harness as necessary, clear the PCM DTCs, and repeat the self-test. If the PID still does not change here on the P0101 path, pause, recheck the earlier diagnostic path, and avoid guessing. The next confirmed branch is not clear for this code at this point. There is a later humidity check for the branch that continues on humidity-related MAF/IAT concerns. That branch is not the clear next move for a no-change result on the P0101 harness check, but it is part of the shared MAF/IAT diagnostic path. For that branch, check humidity values with the engine at ambient conditions, and cold soak the vehicle outside for a minimum of 8 hours if necessary. With the ignition on, monitor and record the REL HMDTY PID, then compare it to the daily humidity level from the local weather report. Indoor and outdoor humidity can be very different, so compare it under the right conditions. If the PID compares with the reported humidity, the condition cannot be duplicated at that time. Check for loose connections, damaged or corroded terminals, and work the harness while trying to recreate the concern. If it does not compare, the branch calls for installing a new MAF/IAT sensor, resetting Keep Alive memory, clearing the PCM DTCs, and repeating the self-test. Keep verification separate from testing. After any repair in this P0101 path, clear the PCM DTCs and repeat the self-test. If the path called for a Keep Alive memory reset, do that before the self-test. The takeaway is simple. Prove the air path first, then prove power, opens, shorts, and intermittent movement before condemning a component. For more diagnostic training, visit stepdiagnostics.com.